From ABC, this is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings, reporting tonight from Washington.
Tonight we have put the subject of solar power on the American agenda, and here is why. Consider this. In 1980, the U.S. imported 6.8 million barrels of foreign oil and spent $600 million on research into other renewable sources of energy. This year, the U.S. will import 7.9 million barrels of foreign oil and spend $100 million on research for other energy sources. There are people in this country who will say that is a dangerous trend. Here's ABC's Ned Potter.
It's a hazy morning over Los Angeles. James Warden is trying to become the Henry Ford of the environmental age.
And our message is that if we can cross the country 3,000 miles by solar power, that by golly, everyone can drive to work and back in a solar electric car.
Warden set out from LA to Washington without a drop of gasoline. All his power comes from above, from sunlight, absorbed by that large flat panel on top and converted to electricity.
Where are you going?
DC, we came from LA.
Do you have a radio in there?
Sometimes we do.
Warden, at age 22, has become one of the nation's champions of solar energy. Solar panels are still terribly inefficient, and that makes solar electricity 5 times as costly as the power from coal or oil. But there is no cost to the environment. It does not foul the air, cause radioactive waste, or spill from supertankers.
But the biggest thing is there's no pollution at all. You don't have to put gas in.
But there is one problem. It has yet to make money. While James Warden was on his way, one of his chief backers, Arco Solar, was sold off by its parent oil company to a German conglomerate.
We see solar energy having a very difficult time being cost competitive as a source of primary energy for the United States and the rest of the world.
Meanwhile, analysts say the Germans and the Japanese blazed the trail because their governments are spending more than ours and their corporations are often more patient for profits. We dropped out when the price of oil dropped after the gas lines of 10 years ago. Back then, President Carter ordered research money and tax breaks for any good alternative to petroleum. He even put up solar heaters at the White House.
In the year 2000, the solar water heater behind me, which is being dedicated today, will still be here.
Carter was wrong. The panels came down in the Reagan years when OPEC oil began flowing more cheaply. Most of the tax breaks expired. Research money for solar dried up. And giant firms like Shell, Westinghouse, and Exxon lost interest. James Warden drove cross-country to prove solar practical. He hopes to market a commuter car soon for $10,000. But General Motors won't put a price tag on its car, the Sun Racer. GM says solar cells are still too inefficient for anything but an experiment.
Is the United States going to have the resilience to stick with it, or will we be importing electric cars from overseas too?
Will the U.S. stick with it? Solar panels are 10 times more efficient than a decade ago, and companies say they'll be in the black by the mid-1990s. But until then, they need some backing, and the few federal incentives that remain are due to expire this year. James Warden pulled up at the Capitol on a blazing morning and showed off his car to members of Congress.
Yay, we made it.
From sea to shining sea on the energy of the sun. But as a going business in America, solar power's future is still clouded. Ned Potter, ABC News, Washington.
Just one other note about Dr. Warden and his electric car. It took him 16 days to drive across the country, and for every 2 to 3 hours on the road at 55 miles an hour, it may take as long as 12 hours to recharge the car's batteries. Mind you, it is an experimental car.
This has been a presentation of ABC News, where more Americans get their news than from any other source.